Today's guest is Ridhima Kalani, founder of TheSceneNY. If you're into the nightlife, this episode is for you. Because unsure if you're aware of it or not, but Resi and OpenTable and things of that nature, they charge a lot of money to some of your favorite places. And anyone who's in business knows that the restaurant business is not the easiest business to get into. So what happens when a startup is looking to address those pain points and not only make it more affordable for businesses to get listed on the directory, but also actually categorize according to your entire vibe? Vibe may not be something for everybody, but most people that I've come across understand the meaning of vibe, right? The ambiance and whether or not it is tuned to who you are and what you like to do and what you like to experience. And that's what the TheSceneNY is looking to address. And Ridhima really does have an interesting background too, because a lot of what she did led up to that point. But I don't want to give the episode away. I think it's worth listening to. I was traveling abroad, so I was using a different microphone. But I want you to listen to this and understand that if you know anybody in NYC, it's a good idea to get them rolling on this. And you can even contribute to its development as the TheSceneNY is looking to continue the further development. It's all crowdsourced. So step on in, listen to the episode, and let me know what you think in the comments of any social media platform. Without further ado, Ridhima Kalani of the TheSceneNY. All right. It is my absolute pleasure to have Ridhima Kalani here with us today. It is not often I get to talk to somebody with your background. It's very unique. I hope you're doing good today. It turns out we're both in NYC somehow.
Yes, doing well. And, happy to hear that you're visiting.
Yeah. If I can find a way, I'll make it happen and I'll come back here because it's just such a great town. And no more is it more visible than the fact that you've been able to craft an entire career out of this and just like helping people understand what a vibe really is and setting the vibe, right? So before we get into that, if I understand correctly, you started personal concierge at just 17.
Yes.
Can you share something memorable from those early days that sort of shaped that entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, of course. So I guess a little bit of a backstory is I grew up in a small town in India and we lived in this big joint family. And the number one thing that I sort of learned was how to take care and always be super mindful of the people around you. And I was somehow put in charge of always doing the anniversaries and birthdays. That was sort of my, random specialty, and came to New York, channeled that into a passion. I was a marketer by background, but the personal concierge thing was always this side hustle that I was pursuing. I remember it started with, being at NYU, first my friend circle, then my sorority circle. Then I started waking up to texts from unknown numbers to like plan their birthdays and things like that. I sort of made contacts at locations organically. It seemed like built relationships. So when you would plan your evening with me, you'd also get like 10 or 20% off your drinks or, free bottles, just random things. But yeah, that's how it sort of began. That said, the number one question I would get from everyone is what's the vibe at a place going to be like? And they wanted to always be matched with vibes. OpenTable and Resi were only matching people with cuisine, area, reservation time slots. It would make my job a lot harder and a lot more time consuming to kind of do the research myself on vibes and try and help. So that's where the idea of the scene was planted. The seed for the scene was planted because I wanted to build something that did the vibe and the guaranteed reservations and the cuisine and the budget and the area and everything else in between.
Whoa. Okay. So then you mentioned you were in marketing prior to that, right? So did that inform your ability to launch this and start getting it moving and so that it could become the thing you wanted? Did those skills carry over?
Very much so. I think marketing and psychology, I was always sort of drawn to taking psychology classes at school. You always have some extra credits that you can play around with. And I did that at NYU. I think taking psychology classes really informs marketing, right? Because then you actually get to know what drives people to want, to need, to desire and things like that. So yes, I think it very much, carved its own way into the scene. Marketing comes very organically to me. And we're a small team. I'm obviously the CMO, the founder, the janitor, everything out here at the scene. But I think marketing for me comes very organically with the scene and with most other companies.
No, and this is true. I mean, within a couple seconds of speaking to you before we hit record, I already had a couple of recommendations of where I could go and what I could do. So I know that it's real. Now, how do you define like a vibe personally? Like if you go to a spot, how do you see fit to say this falls into this category? Is it a certain style that the waiters present themselves in? Is it a certain style the food is presented in? What do you look at as far as elements are concerned?
I think vibe is energy for the most part. So I really think it's about feeling the space out. What are the different energies that are going on at different times of the day, even? Because obviously that changes, and we cater to making sure on the scene that we reflect that with the choices that come up for you. But I think vibe is energy, and a lot of that people bring, So I think that's why it can sort of be different at different times of the day and how crowded a spot is or what the music is like. But I think mainly people, music, aesthetics of the location, that's kind of what makes the vibe.
And once you started building this out, if I have this correct in my notes here, you launched a crowdfunding campaign during the pandemic. Like that's a bold move. Like what was that like and how did you navigate that?
So I think I was doing my master's at the time. I was doing a marketing job. And in January 2020, before the pandemic, I finally, I think, had the confidence to be like, I want to do something I want to do the scene idea that I had. Let me try and do something here. So I made the Instagram account and I started doing research on software dev, like how to make this happen, technically speaking. March 2020, we were hit by the pandemic. I moved back to India to, live with my parents, taking my classes on Eastern Standard Time, doing the job on Eastern Standard Time, and doing the scene on Eastern Standard Time. So all night long, for 6 to 7 months, I was doing that. The world shut down. I didn't know if there could be another, I didn't know if there was much more to my vision, to be honest. I was tested during that period, sure. And I just took baby steps. I was lucky enough that I did have a job and did have, income. So there was always this backup plan of doing marketing for brands. But I decided to start posting at-home recipes for my followers on the scene. So Carbone's rigatoni is so popular. Let me actually post, rather than doing restaurant recommendations because everything is closed, let me post the Carbone rigatoni, how people can make that at home. Let me post the Dante Martini, how people can make that. The different things that people can do at home that are inspired by these heritage New York spots. I also started posting all the restaurant GoFundMes on my page because I was like, what can I do to keep these establishments alive?
Wow.
And I think somewhere down the line, our following just started trusting us. I was getting a lot of DMs. I was like, I really think there's still a demand for this somewhere. Why don't I launch by that point, I knew it was going to cost about $20K to build this technically. So I just decided to crowdfund that on iFundWomen. I don't know what inspired me other than the people in my life to do this. I was working at the time with Seema Bansal, who's the founder of Venus A. Fleur. That was the marketing gig. She's so inspiring. I was living under the roof of my dad, who's a very successful entrepreneur. He was just like, you gotta do this, you just gotta make it happen. It was just surrounded by the right people, I think, to influence this decision of making this happen. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, definitely having entrepreneurship in the family is already like, it's going to push you to want to do those things anyways, because you've seen that it can be done fundamentally, and you're going to want a piece of that for yourself too. It's just the way it goes. So I didn't even know that piece. And now you put that together. I think what was really interesting is that you were raising money to keep some of these amazing places alive in New York. Right now, like as I am here now, I can think of a lot of places that I've been to that have just like, it wouldn't be New York if these places didn't exist, right? So what you were doing for the lifestyle, the culture, just off that, right? Did they personally, any of those people who were running those locations, like connect with you? I imagine some partnerships have struck up from there.
Yes, I think having that, there was a lot of trust that the Scene New York's Instagram gained during that period, whether it be from restaurants or from users, from followers. So both sides that happened, especially, when there were like POC-owned restaurants and they posting their GoFundMe's and building those relationships, it's been deeply meaningful. And it's something that I feel strongly about when it comes to making restaurants succeed. Because just talk a little bit about the industry right now with OpenTable and Resi, they do charge a lot of insane fees per month for restaurants to just be on the platform, and then $1 per table. When for the most part, I'm not even going on OpenTable and looking for the restaurant. I'm typing the restaurant's name and then saying like XYZ restaurant name reservations, right? So why should that money go to OpenTable when they didn't even help me figure out that that's the restaurant I wanted to go to? In some cases, maybe it's fair because you're actually searching for a restaurant reservation on OpenTable. For some reason, I don't know why you don't use the scene, but
processing fees, yeah.
but I think that's something that the scene does want to help with our B2B platform, which is very much still in dev. It's not live yet, but to be able to waive those fees entirely, and then provide restaurants with value. That's what our goal is from the B2B if restaurants want to join us.
Yeah, I mean, that's so first of all, yeah, I would definitely already go with the scene if I ran something like that as opposed to OpenTable and Resi. I mean, to hear, I didn't know that not only are they charging a monthly fee to be part of that directory, but then $1 per every table that RSVPs, when you're right, people were typing in what they were looking for anyways.
We
right?
literally talked about Bond Street, right? So you typed in Bond Street, Hudson Yards, but I take it they're either with Resi or OpenTable. So they're going to get $1 off your table.
Oh, man.
You didn't even use that platform to find the rest. Yeah.
I mean, good for those companies, but not good for the restaurants, right? And that's like, you can't run a business that way. It has to be mutually beneficial. And that's really where the scene has found the gap in the market and wants to fill that, along with the idea of actually setting that vibe categorically. So is this interface that's going to be built? So it's going to be an app just like that, very a competitive product in the marketplace that people are going to be able to check out and type in like, I don't know, California vibes in New York. Is that a thing? Can I do that?
So yes and no, but our web app has been live for just over a year.
Okay.
And we have 8,000 monthly active users there. Just to sort of clarify the B2B product I was talking about, let's set that aside for a second. That's for restaurants and the scene to sort of interface, do the calendar API, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Scene's web app that we're talking about here is basically like a marriage between instant hyper personalized recommendations with guaranteed reservations. And a big part of that personalization does include, yes, the vibe. When you log into the Scene's user app, the first 4 questions I ask you are the same 4 questions I would ask my personal concierge members back in the day. So we've continued that process. But yeah, and then you're kind of matched with 3 to 9 spots with guaranteed reservations that fit your exact vibe and have, the date time slot that you were looking for. And we are also launching the AI version of the app. So it'll be entirely AI powered within about 2 weeks.
That's amazing. So you've already been able to take what you were building from the early inception of the pandemic into the latest large language model tools to sort of aggregate and do that automatically. Now that's going to help you scale, I imagine, right? What you're doing.
Yes. So I did a lot of user interviews. You have to keep the conversation open between you and your users and people that have been using your app since day one to really understand the needs. And with the trust in AI, with ChatGPT coming along, it was a sort of request and something that I heard to make it faster, to make it better, to make it even more personalized. And that's where the idea of the integration with ChatGPT specifically came about. So now, yes, you can still plan your scene the OG way, where you plug in everything and you'll be matched within 30 seconds, or you can send a voice note, you can type it in, you can do as little or as much as you want with the app and still get your hyper personalized list.
I mean, this is incredible because number one, it's known that one of the hardest things to do is as an entrepreneur is start a restaurant, right? And to launch one. But at the rate your application and your world that you're designing as a product is going, you yourself could be breaking restaurants the way record labels try to break artists. I mean, you could do that. Has that crossed your mind yet, setting aside for the future here?
I think, yes, we do from the social media marketing side, we do have experience doing that already. Restaurants reach out to us, and we do help on that front. I think one that I will mention is Maison Clothes, which was an opening in Soho. I knew the owner, Thibaut, since I was 17 or 18, actually. So from the personal concierge days. And thankfully, he left Bagatelle. He started his own restaurant. And we've been happy to be collaborating with them since day one for the launch party, for the launch of different things. We did a big giveaway with them. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of relationships from way back when that still sort of translate now. And we do have the chance every now and then to be able to blow up a restaurant.
No, I personally love this. I think it's cool that not only you were able to secure funding for this dream that you had in your head that you silently kept on the side and then said, you know what, I'm going to go all in, and actually did during one of the toughest times for most businesses. And what you did to create opportunity for companies that were being closed, these restaurants, you know, I mean, there was no mystery. They were the ones who were hit the hardest, you know? So now that you've done that, you came from there. What do you want people to know about what you're doing? Are you still crowdfunding and raising money for any new developments? You mentioned the AI thing. Is that where you're working towards right now?
Yes, essentially, we want to launch the entirely AI-powered platform. We also want to launch the mobile app. So that's already coming probably 2 or 3 weeks after the AI stuff goes live on the web app. And with that, we're expecting to grow by at least 4,000 monthly active users within the first 2 weeks of that launch. So that should get us to about 12K MAU. I am currently raising our pre-seed, which is a 500K. My vision was 22 cities, 5 years. So to fund that vision to scale, we're raising and building our team as well. That's kind of next, launching in Singapore and Dubai would be our next target.
Really? I've interviewed some companies out of Singapore. I'll see if it makes any sense. They may have recommendations for where they go on a regular basis, unless you've already been spending some time out there. You're saying.
I lived there for 5 years back in the day.
Really? So, that's why it's one of the 22 cities. Yeah.
Yes. I think, something that firstly, Singapore was unfortunately hit very hard with the pandemic, even worse than New York because they were closed for very long. I was there for investor meeting last year and just seeing how different it was from way back when I lived there. Because, you expect big cities to get busier, to get, all of those things, and just to see it go the other way around, it was heartbreaking. But I think it's coming back up. And one of the things we don't realize is OpenTable Resi. This is very USA. Like they are hyper, like, sort of focused in yes, there are many cities across the world, but it's not as over in New York. It's like the only two things that everyone, kind of use. But in those other cities, we actually have the opportunity as the scene to be a large scale reservation API and restaurant management system as well, because it's OpenTable and Resi are just not there, and it's still very disorganized how people get reservations there. So yeah, that's the vision.
No, I love it. I think as we begin to close things out, one thing that I'm truly curious about is, because you come from a generation of entrepreneurs, right? Like it's a generational thing, and things planned out and happened the way that they did. You received the support you needed. I imagine no more, no less, because that's kind of the way entrepreneurs do their thing. Yes. Moving forward, as you begin to build this, will you carry on that tradition of encouraging entrepreneurship for the future generations?
I think so. I think, when it comes to this founder CEO sort of lifestyle, there's definitely a lot of toxic energy associated with it as well when it comes to just the 25/7 hustle. And, I think my parents worked very, very hard, and I sort of saw them live that lifestyle for 10 years of barely being home and hustling super hard. And my dad always says to me on the phone, even today, it's a 24/7 hustle. You got to get it. But I think the difference that I sort of bring, and I think people in my generation bring to that, and maybe we have the privilege to bring this perspective, is there has to be some time for mental health. So as long as I'm more than happy to encourage entrepreneurship, as long as there's this honest conversation about mental health going on. Handling the no's in fundraising is not easy. There's weeks when I wanted to grow by 10x and I grew by 5x. It feels very personal. And there needs to be an open conversation there. Jesse Middleton, who's not an investor with us, but an advisor, and he invests in companies, does monthly calls with all his founders that he's invested in and just checks in on how they're feeling. So this is an up and coming culture that people need to be, I think, talking more about. And I hope it kind of brings in a change.
Yeah, no, 100% right. There is now a generation that says we got to do more than just work. We have to live. And if that means going from 10x to 5x and being okay with that for one day or 1 week, fine. We can't drive ourselves into the ground trying to accomplish the things that we're trying to do to live a life, right? It just doesn't make sense. But you're right. The old school mentality was definitely 25/7. That is a fact. And nothing but respect for that. You're right. But if it can be better, why not do better?
Yes.
Right. So with that said, I want to roll out the red carpet for you and have you tell people where you want them to go. What's your call to action after they've heard your story, they've seen what you value, they've seen what you've been able to create and your vision, 22 cities, right? So what do you want them to know and what do you want them to do?
Well, firstly, thank you for listening. Honestly, just please sign up on web.TheSceneNY.com for our Pocket Concierge service. I hope it brings you so much value. If you have feedback for me, if you want to be more in touch with the scene, send your feedback to our Instagram at The Scene New York. And it's not NYC, it's like the full word, New York. And yeah, feel free to DM me with your thoughts. I'd love to chat and take things forward.
Yeah, Ridhima, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.